training camp hasn't started. We got to see how it responds to live action basketball. I thought it was promising that he was playing games, but I can't even say I had antennas up about him resting preseason games because I'm like, okay, they're just being cautious, whatever. And then the season-ending injury news, surgery hit. And I'm like, shoot.
I don't know about you, but I'm sorry to interrupt, but I got this weird feeling on the game against the Bucks. It was the last preseason game, and he was not in, and I got like this weird feeling, and somehow I was not really surprised. I was, of course, I was kind of in shock, but I was not really surprised when I saw the season-ending surgery news, because I had this feeling when I see that he was not playing the Bucks. If I remember, because the lineup we had on that game was the one that we started the season with. Probably it was just a coincidence, of course, but I don't know. But no, go on.
It sucks, but I mean, I ultimately think that I think it'll be. I think what they did was the right thing. Obviously, it's not fun when an injury that originally had the diagnosis of 3 to 5 weeks, and having that turn into not playing in the next season. That doesn't.
It's like
it doesn't look great. Like, it does not look great. But I mean, at the end of the day, like, I think it's all fine. I think they handled it well. They did what they can initially to go through this and not operate on it, and it just didn't work. Like, it didn't work. It happens. Like,
I agree with you. I read some reports from it was from a physician who worked in the NBA, and he said that the procedure was right, that try to avoid surgery was right, and you cannot really predict how the human body is going to respond, and so I asked you this question because, of course, as you said, now it's one thing to start like with an injury that's gonna take like 3-4 weeks to get healed, and then it's a year and a half. But I agree with you. I think that everything was done in the best possible way. It didn't turn out well, but it's the way it goes sometimes, right?
Right. I totally agree.
Okay, and how do you? Okay, now we have another subject. It's the Ja Morant subject. 25 games out. How do you envision his return?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's Ja Morant. He's an All NBA point guard. He's going to make your team better because I mean that's an extra 27. That's 27 points and 8 assists right there back. Just the amount of pressure that he puts on a defense with his rim pressure, how he gets downhill, how he finishes in the paint, but also too how he leverages that to find open looks for his teammates. I mean, if we like Desmond Bane, he's been really good so far. But I mean, his 3-point is at 35% because he is the primary option offensively. Imagine what he's going to look like when Ja Morant's back, and how formidable the Grizzlies offense will be having two dynamic offensive weapons in Ja Morant and Desmond Bane. And also too, I think it will help Marcus Smart a lot too, get into a more ideal role. Because I mean, I think he's been solid. He's had his moments, some great, some not so great, and that's part of growing accustomed to a new team, getting familiar with new teammates, a new system, and all the dynamics there. I think he's turned the ball over too much, but I think it's also because he's a little bit overtaxed in this role. I think maybe they should, for the time being, kind of consider having Bane handle more on-ball responsibilities, while Smart is a little bit more secondary. And I think that having I think having John Morant back will help Marcus Smart get into more of a more ideal and optimized role offensively. And I mean, and also too, it's going to help for lineup staggering as well, because I know we see a lot of times with the bench where stuff stagnates because you don't have Jaren Jackson Jr. or Desmond Bane in the game, and sometimes you don't even have Marcus Smart in the game in there as well. So now you have more time on the floor where you have at least one of John Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr., Desmond Bane, and that's how the Grizzlies ceiling rises. That's how wins follow through, and how the Grizzlies really become a more formidable playoff contender in the Western Conference.
Yeah. And you were talking about Triple J and Bane. Also, how do you think that this 25 game sequence without them having to step up as they're doing, can we get in the future when Jack comes back, the three of them will be stronger. Do you see this?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Jaren Jackson Jr. and Desmond Bane have showcased growth in this early part of the season. Obviously, Desmond Bane just continues to level up and up and up as a shot creator, and he's continuing to find his groove as a 2-point scorer. And granted, like, it's early in the season, you kind of got to see what you have to buy and sell. It's still a small sample size, but he's shooting 58% on twos on 11.6 twos per game, both on pace to beat career highs. That's some good stuff that highlights his growth as a shot creator. And with Jaren Jackson Jr., maintaining his efficiency as an offensive weapon, while also, like, he's still such a devastating defender. Oh, I also got to say too, I mean, shout out with Desmond Bane with this. I mean, his defensive urgency and locked in defensively. He's averaging 2 steals a game. He's just busting his tail on that end of the floor. And I think that bodes well to kind of helping the Grizzlies reestablish themselves as a top tier defense as time goes along. They will. Obviously, early in the season, stuff can get skewed by 1 or 2 games. But I mean, you have Jaren Jackson Jr. and Marcus Smart, your defense will be fine. I mean, with Jaren Jackson Jr., he's maintaining efficiency while his volume's gone up. I think it's really encouraging. They're shooting almost 38% from 3 on 5 threes a game. Granted, small sample size, but I love to see that. Grabbing more rebounds. He's averaging 7.6 rebounds per game, but he's also dishing out more assists, making more reads, averaging 2.6 assists per game, and still, being a devastating shot blocker. And I think this stretch for Jaren Jackson Jr. to grow, not even in the absence of John Morant, but also in the absence of Steven Adams and Brandon Clark, yes. I think he's been really good, and you'll still have people saying he's not doing enough. But I mean, I think the biggest sign of growth for Jaren Jackson Jr. is in those 2 Portland games, he played 38 and 37 minutes in both games and only came up with 1 foul. And he had 10 rebounds in one game, 7 in the other. And then if you even go before that, I think it was the Utah game, the Dallas game, he only finished with 3 fouls in both of those games while having 8 and 9 rebounds. So I think he's the points of criticism that Jaren Jackson usually gets, he's addressing and doing quite well. Granted, people are going to think he needs more rebounds, but it's still like, hey, would you sacrifice an extra block or 2 a game for him to grab 10 to 11 rebounds instead? Who knows? I do think rim deterrence and rim protection is incredibly valuable. But I think he's answering the call on a lot of points of criticism that people have had for him over the past several years. And I think this will only bode well when John Morant comes back. Obviously they may or may not maintain their production from like a, points per game, assists per game, or anything like that, or shot attempts per game. But if they can just use this time to iron out some parts of their game that still need growth, that's what it's all about at this point right now without Ja.
Okay, what do you think that's the biggest thing for that you said the for Jaren to at least in the last game seemingly not being in the foul trouble that's recurrently he used to go into.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the
What
day, it's
changed? Like what changed in this game? What do you see that makes this happen? Like because I believe it's like 75 minutes or so in the two games that he had like two fouls, I think.
that's a good question because I mean, personally, it's not something I noticed when watching the game. I didn't know. It's like, yeah, Jaren's fouling less. I don't know if it's like a more
Mm-hmm.
formidable whistle or picking and choosing his spots a little bit better. Like, I mean, I will say there was like, I mean, hell, he could just be getting a better whistle in that respect from being a defensive player of the year and two-time first team all defender. I mean, there was this one play where, he was kind of getting his hands in the cookie jar and knocking the ball away from DeAndre Ayton, and the refs just kind of let him play. And that's a call where I think they would have made 2 years ago, calling a foul on Jaren Jackson Jr., but he didn't. He didn't get that foul call. So I was like, all right, cool. Let it rip. Like they're letting him play defense. It's something to monitor over the next few games because obviously, we can have this conversation, and he has 5 fouls in 20 minutes against the Miami Heat tonight. So
yeah,
let's wait and see. It's one of those things you monitor. Obviously, I think all the sample right now that we have, it's to just monitor, but it's promising nonetheless.
Yeah, sure. Now, looking into the future, and of course, there's just so much as you can see into the future. What possible moves could you see the Grizzlies doing near the trade deadline?
Yeah, I mean, I think getting another starting quality front court player. Whether you decide that you want Jaren Jackson Jr. to play the 5 and you go after more of a 4, or if you want another 5 and go target another a starting caliber center to kind of be next to Jaren Jackson Jr. And from there, you kind of assess it. Okay, is this going to be are we going to go after a stopgap center and go get a center in the 2024 draft to kind of develop his potential starter next to Jaren? Or are we going to go get a guy that we think we can start next to Jaren Jackson Jr. down the road? That obviously, I think that kind of lingers, but also too, I think the Grizzlies, they won't stop in their pursuit for a wing between John Morant, Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson Jr. I think Marcus Smart will start at the de facto 3 this season, which I mean, it's all positionless stuff. I think Desmond Bane can handle the 3 as well. But I mean, if a wing becomes available on the market and the Grizzlies feel like they can go get him, I see that as an option as well. And then again, it's so early in the season, like you can't get a gauge because I mean, you're still waiting on if teams end up deciding, okay, let's go focus on our development. Let's go get value for these veterans and continue this rebuild. Or you just don't know yet. So I can't say players at this point, but I guess archetypes, either a big man, a big wing, or a forward. Those are the 3 archetypes that I would look for the Memphis Grizzlies to utilize in a trade. And you kind of wonder there, like, okay, what can they work with the trade? I said it earlier in the show, but they have $25 million in big men with season-ending injuries. Do you use that salary in a Jake LaRavia and and just see what you can get? I don't know, but that's something that I would at least put down on the table as an offer. I mean, hell, last year the Grizzlies were able to use Danny Green and 3 second-round draft picks to get Luke Kennard. So, So, I don't think there's anything untradeable in today's NBA. I think that's been the case for several years now. So I just kind of look for the Grizzlies to kind of see what they can get in terms of potential trade packages revolving around one of those salaries, a young guy, and a pick.
Okay. What's your take on Zaire Williams?
Yeah, I think Zaire Williams has been solid. Again, I think he's turning the ball over a little bit too much, I think, just from having more responsibility with the ball in his hands. But I do like, and I'm intrigued by the intersection between his abilities as an initiator, like as an off the dribble guy, and as a play finisher. He's had a lot of good pick and roll sequences as the roll man. He's done some stuff off the dribble as well to either generate threes or stuff in the mid range. I think he's passing up a little bit of mid range shots. I think that's a good shot for him, and I don't think he should be passing that up. But I'm impressed by Zaire Williams. I think he in this. I don't know how long this will be a problem, but he gets pushed around a little bit when teams are getting downhill on him and getting to their spots. He can't absorb the contact that well, and then there's times where he's coming down with a rebound and he comes down with it and then just gets the ball snatched from him for a rebound. Like, I think the physicality element is still kind of tough there. It kind of shows that Zaire Williams might be more of like a 2-3 than a 3-4. But I mean, I've been pretty impressed with how he's played, and I'm intrigued by what happens when he shifts to the bench when John Morant comes back as well.
Okay. And as for the game tonight in about 6 hours, I believe. How do you see this game?
Yeah,
what do you expect from the game?
Miami's always a tough team. I think you'll also have Bam Adebayo wanting to go at Jaren Jackson Jr. because he feels like he should be the Defensive Player of the Year. They have Jimmy Butler. They have role players that, and I mean, Tyler Hero is a really good shot creator as well. They have role players that can go off. I'm just trying to make sure I'm saying names of players that are healthy at the moment. But I mean, Duncan Robinson, excellent 3-point shooter. They just beat the Lakers the other night. They're 3-4. They got Duncan Robinson. Josh Richardson's also good. Who knows what Kyle Lowry can provide on each every night. I think Jaime Jaquez is a rookie that is shown early production thus far, and I think he could be a rotation player. But I do think that it's a tough matchup, but it's a winnable one as well.
Okay. I think so. And I'm gonna be supporting to get the second win of the season.
That's right.
Parker, I want to thank you so much. I don't know if there's any other subject you want to address.
No subject. Just one of those things like, you can be worried about if the team ends up starting off too slow and digging itself a hole to where they can't get into a obviously ideal would be the number 1 seed or a top 4 seed, I guess, but to where the point where they're having to scratch and claw their way into the playoffs or even the play-in, I think that's probably obviously there's that fear, but I do think that this team will be fine. I think they should make the playoffs, and even if it's a play-in, we just saw 2 teams go to the conference finals last year after making the play-in. So I mean, I don't think the sky's falling. After 7 games, you'll have players get accustomed to this system, this role. We should see improvements as players are getting healthier and as John Morant comes back. So I don't think the sky's falling. No need to have that. There are concerns. They need to shore up their perimeter defense. They're giving up too many threes. They got to figure out what to do when the offense is stagnating.
That was the thing that the 3-point conceded was like really a big thing. Don't you think?
Yeah. And I gotta say too, one thing that they have to do when they're facing this problem where teams are just unloading from 3 on them is I gotta make sure they're closing the gap in terms of the 3-point effectiveness.